Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right. Welcome to my live stream. I'm Joshua Kemble, as I said at the intro. You'll notice my light setup isn't quite the same. That's because everybody's up. Everything's kind of going, moving, and happening around the house. I have a crazy busy night ahead of me. I have to finish a illustration of a turtle, which is what I'm going to do on stream. And then after that, I have to kind of set up some curriculum for some classes, which is going to be interesting, and also hopefully stay on top of my graphic novel. So it's going to be a pretty wildly busy night, but I'm excited and I'm glad. And I realized I was going to be working on art, so I might as well stream. So we're going to work on a robot turtle for an unnamed client. I'm not going to name the client because I'm not sure how much they want to share. But I've been doing some book covers and stuff for them. So I initially did one round of the illustration. It was way too complex. We kind of pared it down, simplified it, and now it's going to be about just kind of executing it with more simple lines than even the rough that I kind of revised the final with like a rough sketch over it. And then from there, we'll kind of go into it. So I'll show you guys that in a second. But in the meantime, we're going to go over guitars. So I've been going through a list of the guitars that I own and kind of how they benefit me and stuff like that on these live streams. The first one I showed was the Squier 2 Stratocaster, the cheap Stratocaster that I got at a pawn shop. It was my second guitar, but my first like real guitar. The next was a Squier Telecaster, which was my first like new guitar. The next was a Jasmine acoustic, which is like by Takamine. It's like their Squier, which was my first acoustic guitar. And I just kind of lucked out that my first was a dreadnought, because you need a good dreadnought, or in my case, you need 3 good dreadnoughts. The next was a Siegel S6. That's the solid top acoustic that I showed. The next was the modded Telecaster Squier. That was the I think a 20th anniversary model, and I modded that with P90s, and it's my very shreddy Telecaster. The next we went into the Sterling bass by Stingray, which is like the bass guitar that I got for recording. The Fender Telecaster, the made in USA. That's the best guitar I own. And my favorite guitar, and it's good for everything, as all Telecasters should be, with that beautiful quack. The next was a Luna, a ukulele, soprano ukulele, which I used on Got Notes and a couple other recordings. All of these have been used on recordings. Then the ninth was a Gibson SG Standard, which was my foray into Gibson and Epiphone territory, and I loved it. So I ended up getting the Les Paul 59 Epiphone, inspired by Gibson, which we showed on the last one. And now we're going to get into acoustic territory. So I had this taste of what it's like to have an actual Gibson and an actual Fender, and I realized that I might be lacking something where it comes to acoustic. I use acoustic a lot in my music. You can see it in on my solo stuff or my collaborations. I like to use acoustic guitar a lot. It's one of my favorite things. One of my favorite musicians is Elliott Smith, and I wanted to get a really decent acoustic, so I started doing research and reading on an all solid wood acoustic that was in a budget range. And by budget range, like under 1,000, because they're very expensive. And so I started doing all this research, and at the time, the Inspired By series that was released, the same series that the '59 Les Paul was kind of recreated with Gibson Burstbucker pickups and stuff. The same series, they did a inspired by Gibson Hummingbird. Epiphone did, and it was all solid wood. So it's not like the regular Epiphone Hummingbirds where they look nice, but they're kind of like solid top and then laminate wood. This is all solid wood, and I looked into it, and it's like bone nut, all solid wood, really nice craftsmanship, really great reviews. And so I got myself a Hummingbird, and this is the best acoustic guitar that I own. And I'm going to show that off real quick, and then we're going to get into art. So let me grab my Hummingbird, and I have no idea what happened there. Let's see here. There we go. Somehow was that can't be right. Okay, I think that is right. Sorry. So yeah, let me show you guys my my Hummingbird, and then we'll kind of move from there and get some art done. So this is the Gibson Hummingbird. I think I've shown it on stream before. Just gonna bang it against everything because it's a expensive guitar. So this is a beautiful acoustic guitar. I absolutely love it. It has binding around the edges, sunbursts. It has Fishman Sonocore, I guess, pickups, which I still have yet to even check out because I don't really use the acoustic electric function unless I'm playing live gigs, and I haven't had a reason or a live gig since getting this guitar. But that will come in handy if I ever do a live gig. And of course, it has the classic Hummingbird pickguard. It has pearl inlays, the kind of trapezoid inlays. It has beautiful kind of vintage style tuners. These are like the Epiphone version of, I think, Kluson's. And it's just a beautiful guitar, and the wood's great, the craftsmanship's great, and then because it's all solid wood, it sounds like a Hummingbird. And I love this guitar. So let's play something real quick. I haven't practiced anything or anything like that. We'll just play a couple cowboy chords on it just to show you the tone of this thing, and then we'll get into drawing stuff. So I'm putting this down so you can hear better. Let's move that chord. So that's I think that's a beautiful guitar. It's funny because, like a lot of more expensive guitars I got, I wanted there to not be much of a difference with all solid wood, and there is a massive tonal difference uh, on this guitar. And so this is now my go-to acoustic. It's just like the setup, the fret ends are like perfect. The setup's great. There's a slight little ding here on the corner that actually ended up saving me about, I don't know, $400 or something when I bought it, because it was like B stock. Um, but it's great. It's a great guitar. It's under $1,000, all solid wood, acoustic with beautiful craftsmanship. And again, it's that inspired by Gibson series, which I think Epiphones just like up their game. A lot of people are like critical of Epiphones costs going up for their inspired by series, but I think those are people who haven't played these guitars. These are like unbelievable guitars. The only thing comparable Epiphone's done before would be like their Master Built series, where they were doing all solid wood guitars that are like made and put together by a craftsman, like a master builder. But this is, I'd say, like blows those out of the water. It's a great guitar. I have to put it down because otherwise this will become a guitar stream. So I'm going to put this away, and then we'll put on a trailer while I put this away. And then we're going to get into, let's draw some turtles. Some turtles, guys. Client turtles. It's awesome. Okay, let's play Kids Say Kemble by Mr. Jim Lujan, who has a full-length feature animation coming out called The Full Fungus. But yeah, let's put that on, and then we'll get into working on some art, and hopefully do it fairly quickly. So here is Kids Say Kemble.
We now return to Kids Say the Craziest Thing.
So, little Susie, do you have any brothers or sisters? I understand you're in 3rd grade. How do you like that? Do you like your teacher? You like to do a lot of fun things at school? You got any hobbies, Susie? Any things you like to do when you're not in school? I hear you like to read.
Well, right now I'm reading 2 stories written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It grapples with faith and mental illness. It's ultimately a story about redemption. It's a savage piece of writing. Also, I just finished up Jacob's Apartment, another one by Kemble. Jacob's Apartment weaves together elements of spiritualism and relationship dynamics, as well as atheism, and all the while it deals with abandonment and loyalty. It's a fierce read.
Do you like ponies?
All right, I absolutely love that one. So here's my little rough for a turtle. It's a cyber turtle. It's for a specific client that I don't want to name, but basically the idea is like it's like protection. You're building like cyber protection. So so what we're doing is we're gonna go ahead and get this cyber turtle done. I'll show you the original. So the original was this. The client felt like it was too complicated for the style they usually go for. So we're going to kind of, again, I took a second pass with a sketch over it just to say, okay, simplified like this. And they were like exactly, but like less darks, like less shadows and stuff like that. So we're going to go over this, make it a little more cartoony. And so that's going to require kind of rebuilding the whole engine of this thing, but that's okay. Again, this is a good client. They pay for revisions. There's no complaints there. So, we're going to basically just focus on the line work for now, and then I'll get into the coloring in a second. And it's on a specific kind of color palette that's pretty minimal. And so we're going to kind of, at this point, I'm just focused on the line art, and then we will expand our line art and be coloring in a little bit as well. But for now, what I'm going to do is just kind of, again, like simplify. And what I think I actually want to do to simplify, I was going to start building it by pieces. But I think what we're going to do to simplify it is start with some of the more kind of bold lines. And I'm going to work a little differently using Adobe Illustrator than I possibly might on, say, like a different project. So what I'm going to do right now is just get the outline of the overall turtle right now and do it real thick. Not like crazy thick, but fairly thick. And we're just working on the lines using mostly the pen tool. So I'm going to use the pen tool and possibly, some expanded stuff as well. But the majority of this is going to be done with the pen tool. We might just do some shapes just to kind of simplify some of these areas. Just have this overlap. And we're going to build this cyber turtle. Okay. I kind of want to have, that's actually a pretty good cutoff point. Let's have him here. And then let's make him like one big solid shape using the Pathfinder. And we'll just kind of continue through this. So just so you know what I'm doing here too, I have dimmed the rough on the layer below so that it's at 50% so that I can kind of see what I'm working on out here. Gary Hodges is joining us. Gary, there are a lot of people out there who want to go into forensics. Just thought you might get a kick out of that. Like I was having conversations with people about their future career ambitions, and a lot of people were really interested in forensics and forensic art. And it was like, Gary. Anyhow, I know that I don't know if that's entirely what you would call what you do, but it's kind of interesting and cool that there are folks out there who would enjoy doing what you do. All right. I thought you'd get a kick out of that. Okay. So I want to make this even thicker. We're going to go to like 2.5. Gary said it's an element of what he does. Yeah. I feel like you're a little differentiated from that, but it is a portion of it, I just thought it was interesting that like some people, when they were randomly asked, like, what do you want to do for a living? They were like, forensics and forensic art. I was like, huh. All right. Oh my goodness. My allergies are going nuts. So we'll see if I get through this stream alive. So again, we're going to kind of simplify. So even this, I want to do just some basic kind of stuff. We might even do, might even thicken some of the lines. Oh, I thought that would work. Oh, I see. Got it. Okay, never mind. I was going to thicken some of the lines, but we won't. Okay. Simplifying. So right now what I think I'm going to do here is probably do this as like a 1.5. And I think here we're going to do some reducing the points. But I want them thickening a little bit over here. See how it's coming along. Much simpler. Okay. So now I want to do, I want to work on some details here. So this turtle has like a big old smiley face. And I think what we're going to do is like thicken it a little bit here. as it kind of gets towards the point, and then thin it out here. So this is just doing line art in Adobe Illustrator. I find that, for this kind of thing, particularly a client who wants vector art, it's a fairly quick way of doing a little bit of illustration. And I'm going to try to simplify this and make it have less blacks on it. I like the idea of that line weight. So hopefully this will go fairly quickly, and also maybe give you guys a window into, client work. I don't always do a lot of illustration work on stream. And that's something I hope to kind of remedy a little bit, because I do think it can be helpful to kind of see that side of things. I just did an illustration for so long in my career. It's rarely something I want to, show off. But it's it is a cool way to make some income. And so it's kind of, I think it's cool. Personally, I think it's kind of fun for people to hopefully realize that you can do this stuff and get paid to do it. And that's pretty cool. I do enjoy that. And I actually enjoy this client a lot. Who doesn't like drawing, a robot turtle for a client, even if it's not the fastest job or anything like that. It's kind of fun. I want to thicken these points again. I might have ruined my chances of that, but there we go. We're just going to thicken it a little bit, just so it's a little less extreme when it gets to that corner. So there we go. We got a nice little circle there. And we're just going to bust through this, and hopefully be done before 10. That's my hope. Because I also have to work out today. So I have to plan. I have a busy day ahead of me. And it's not a bad busy day, but I have a lot I got to do. Don't we all, right? There's got to be a meme about that, the people who you run into and are like, I'm busy. And it's well, yeah, but we all are, dude. So if I'm being that guy, I apologize. I actually don't like how that was. I want that actually rounded. So we're going to remerge and make that a little better. There we go. It's a little more believable. And I think I want this to be super thick like that. I actually like the juxtaposition, as they say. So what's interesting? I've been getting in these conversations about determinate. I talked about this on the last stream with a ton of people. And what I found is I don't think a lot of people can argue with determinism. I think at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to why I don't want to believe in it, even though it seems like it's true. And it's the fact that it's just really uncomfortable. The idea that everything might be predetermined and people don't have really free will or a choice over their actions. It's a really scary thing, what that implies. And so the thing that's fascinating about it to me is not that I want to believe it. I actually don't. It's just the fact that I'm really intrigued by something that seems pretty factually coherent, that people are just really no, including myself, that the response is just oh, but that can't be, that to me maybe that's part of my personality or something. But that to me like signifies like maybe this might be like an uncomfortable truth, which I think is really interesting. I'm curious though if anyone else finds it interesting, because like I've been talking about it for a little bit lately, and I haven't really got much response about it. So I'm kind of wondering, is it because of that, or is it just like weird kind of late night, hippie talk? Is it hippie talk? Is that what's going on? Okay. Anyhow, I don't know. I just think it's really interesting, and I know it's odd because it's not like the most deep, profound thing to think about. I think it's an early question a lot of people have. It's just something I've been surprised that I haven't put much thought into it up until this last year. So that's been really fascinating to me. Aside from that, we got our fish tanks cleaned this weekend. That was nice. So the fish are in nice, clean water. And I got to tell you, man, like that is an activity. When you get like giant fish tanks, cleaning of a fish tank can be like an incredibly wild. It's an hours minimum endeavor per tank, because you're talking 65 40 gallon tanks. I don't know how people do it with tanks that are bigger than that. But yeah, so that's been interesting. What have you guys been up to? How are you doing? How are your projects coming along? So anyhow, what's on the dock is today I need to work out. I need to take photo reference for the next page of Not Death But Love, the Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I need to set up curriculum for a couple classes, and that all needs to happen tonight. And I'm kind of excited about it. Okay, so I like that. That thickness seems about right. I just don't want to get too thick with things, so maybe this goes back to like 2. And again, I want to keep this somewhat simplified. So we're going to delete this. My son's calling for his mom, and she is picking up my sister-in-law. So I will be right back. Here's let's play Wordzoid by Jim Lujan.
Well, Peter, since I'm such a big music fan, I'm gonna have to go with Karen Carpenter. Oh, Stu, I'm sorry. That's the incorrect answer. Trish, what you got for us?
I'm gonna go with Kim Gordon.
All right, let's check that answer. Kim Gordon. Do we have a Kim Gordon? Yes, and that means you're our new Wordzoid champion, Trish. Dale, tell Trish what she's won.
Trish, you've won a copy of 2 stories, a memoir of faith and mental illness. Handwritten, hand-drawn, and handed to you by artist and writer Joshua Kemble. But wait, that's not all. You've also won a copy of Jacob's Apartment, the story of a doomed romance. What happens when you take eternal sunshine out of the spotless mind and put it in a blender with Ghost World? You get Jacob's Apartment, written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. Trish, thank you for playing Wordzoid.
All right, great job, Trish. I was told I was gonna get a lifetime supply of paper towels.
All right. That's another wonderful ad by Jim Lujan. I've been on a kick playing the Jim Lujan ads because Mr. Lujan has the full fungus coming out. His Magnum fungus. I think that's what he should call it, is his Magnum fungus. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't work. Let's see here. Okay, 1.5. Let's try 1.25. Okay, so again, we're just kind of simplifying a little bit, making it a little more fun and a little less meticulous as the previous. which is kind of, that's going to happen sometimes with art. This is something I think, well, I mean, maybe people talk about it, but I feel like illustrators sometimes don't, I do think we went over this in school. And I think like some people will, really quickly besmirch or belittle school. And I kind of understand it because it's very expensive. And sometimes schools, especially art schools, yeah. Jim said magnum fungus. Exactly. Your magnum fungus. Um, but yeah, like I feel like there is like a real benefit to learning how to deal with critique and revision. Because like professional art is critique and revision. Unless you're like one of like a very strange group of people who don't have to worry about that, or you're working on personal projects. And even when you're working on personal projects, right? Like there is a part of you that kind of has to be open to critique and revision. Um, and again, like there are some artists that I know will, can somehow get away with not having any sort of compromise whatsoever in their work and end up with brilliant work. But I think a lot of people who do non-compromising art actually can end up with some really bad products. and like, so, the artists I know that are really great that are working on personal projects, like Jim's a good example. Jim's working on personal projects, but Jim seeks out feedback from people all the time. I think him and Gary have like a almost like an agreement to like help each other and critique each other's work and try to make it better. And I think that's really important because it's like uh you especially if you're working for a client, right? It's like if you're working for a client, at the end of the day, like they're paying you for something they want, and if you give them something they don't want, it just kind of sucks for both of you. So being able to kind of like hear feedback, revise, and improve things is just like a really crazy good skill. I think that's too much detail. I want to, the client wants this real simple, so we're gonna keep it real simple. So we're gonna abandon that line. Abandon the line. Okay, so anyhow, I guess what I'm saying is like that's something I in retrospect really appreciate about art school that it got me ready for was like, critique, revision, and kind of like improving things. And in college it's a lot of the time like just to make it better, but to, your professor's feedback or whatever. But like in the real world, like that's a real huge benefit, because rarely are you gonna perfectly nail what somebody wants in go number one. And quite often, like you end up with better results. Sometimes I don't, sometimes like a client or, I've definitely experienced this when I was an art director. Sometimes sales departments make really stupid calls and then they pay for it. And they pay for it because like they can't tell what's good or what's going to sell. Um, and so like there are times where like the suits really ruin things for art, but there's also times where clients and the suits like they're right. Jim said, Josh, hey, I have a super random question for you. All right, let's do it. So again, we're gonna do just like a little bit of shoot any super random questions my way or the highway. So I think here I'm going to do, I almost wonder if I should do some, maybe we do just a couple lines. Again, it's like, it's going to be this fine balance between hitting the, a little bit of detail and having like too much. But I really appreciate this client. They have come out of the woodwork at a time where we need the extra income. My wife and I are both going through a bit of a like financial change, because like I've changed careers a little bit, and so that's requiring a little bit of adjustment. So any like extra freelance again, I'm not like wildly open for freelance, and I'm not advertising freelance. But you know, this is a good paying client, and I need it right about now. So it's like one of those things where I still don't take a ton of freelance, but this is really helping out with the finances and stuff like that. So it's been fun. And how fun is that to, like, you know, have, again, like your extra income from drawing a turtle? Like, that's cool, you know? I don't know. Jim said, "What are your thoughts on Summertime Blues by Blue Cheer?" I have never heard of Blue Cheer, and now I'm going to write that down. Blue Cheer. Now, Jim, Blue Cheer isn't like similar to some of the bands that you've been posting lately on your YouTube, is it? Because I didn't check your YouTube today. So for all I know, Blue Cheer could be like American Fist. Is this like an American Fist type thing, Jim, or is this like a band recommendation? I know, like Livingstone kind of recommendation there, or you got to tell me. I can't tell, Jim. I will say you guys should check out Livingstone. That is one of the most amazing things I've ever heard of it. Oh, Jim was saying this was an old early hard rock band, Summertime Blues. Go check that out on YouTube. Nice. I will, Jim. I will. Let's see here. Okay. Robot turtling, guys. Robot turtling. I like the idea of this being, let's see, it's about the right thickness. And we're just going to do this as a tapering line. And I think this will be like a thinner line here. So it's like a little robot thing. That's the official robot shoulder pad. So I'm already liking how it's coming out. I feel like, since we're smoothing it out, we should have that line be a little more consistent with the line that it's against, so that it doesn't look as strange as it does. Similarly, I feel like this might need to simplify and thin. There we go. That's working a little better for me. And this, I feel, is a little distracting, so I think we're going to move it just a little bit and clean up the points just a tad. There we go. Dylan Magwai of the Thalasso. Nice. I have no idea. That's a really cool name, Dylan. Yeah, now I'm really curious about that band, though, Jim. I'll check it out. So a lot of this is going to remain about the same. It's just about simplifying it. So here, you know, this is going to be like a little piston thing. Here, I like the idea of just all of this getting way simpler, so it kind of matches the vibe of this client more. And I will say, I do have a weakness sometimes as an artist of overcomplicating things. And I I think that sometimes it just happens. Like, I definitely have had that with art. Like, you guys can probably see that with some of my panels where I'll just get so into like details that I like over detail. Um, and so sometimes taking a second pass, I think, is a good thing for me because, yeah, I like details. I may not even like that's the part that's strange. I don't even know if I like details. I just get lost in them sometimes, rather than kind of thinking of the whole, which is something you get better and better at the more you do art. But I am still that's one of the things on my list of things to improve on. Nice. Dylan said, "Thank you. It's Greek, essentially magician of the sea." Nice. I like that. So does Mogwai mean magician? Is that what the band? I had no idea. That's cool. I feel like I learned something new now because I like Mogwai, but I didn't know that meant magician. Or does that mean sea? I don't know. So here we're getting just like way simpler, kind of working on our little robot turtle, simplifying it substantially from the previous version. I like doing these like retro robots. Like, they're really fun for me. There's a part of me. It's funny because I do all this slice of life stuff, but there's a huge part of me that loves like giant robots and like tin robots and stuff. And so like building kind of weird, preposterous animals that aren't even cool. Like that's the thing I like. I like the ones that aren't cool. Like, um, there's something about like really smooth, slick mechs that I just don't like. They don't speak to me like like Ultraman speaks to me. Like there's something great about like Bimular in Ultraman, who's just like horrible design, but he's great. He's just like, he's a horrible giant monster. And it's like I think there's something great about that I really enjoy. Kind of doing things like giving, like childlike things, like you have he has these his eyes are light bulbs. Like this is not a killer robot. Nice. Dylan said, hell yeah, love them. Nice. Cheer not chair. Whoops. I don't know what that means. But yeah, anyhow, there's just a thing about that like old like almost just badly built kind of toaster oven looking robots that they speak to my heart. So the original of this was a little bit more like that, but the problem is when I've illustrated those in the past, and I did I've done a couple. I did one that was a robot bear for California for a guy who commissioned me, and then he got it tattooed on his arm. And then he had actually on his other arm gotten a tattoo of my robot alligator that I did in this style, where it's both of them have like a plug. Like the alligator has like just a little plug like coming out of his tail. Nice. Jim said, I messaged you Blue Cheer. They were Nirvana before Nirvana. Jim, I'm checking that out. That's great. I see. This is the thing I love. The thing I love about getting older is that I start digging into like older things and finding like older music that was great. It's funny. It's like up until like I think maybe 2 years ago, I didn't even know T-Rex. And T-Rex is not like some indie thing. Like they were a pretty big band at the time. But it's only like a couple years ago where I started getting into T-Rex, and it's like, man, that's so fun to find stuff like that. So now I know a new one, you know, or like the Sonics or the Monks. Like these are bands that I recently, you know, got into and kind of rediscovered, I guess. And it's like so much better than a lot of new stuff. So I don't know, I really dig that. Thank you, Jim, for giving me something to possibly listen to while I'm working on curricula. Curricula sounds kind of strangely like Caligula. All right. Let's see here. Now I have a little spot that I'm going to have be black. Okay. And again, we're just simplifying this robot. In fact, I may not even use black. We'll see. Okay. Now I want to do these legs, and I'm just going to do like the big chunks first. The big outline. The big Magoo here. And the great thing about this is, you know, this is going to look great. So we're doing like our kind of overall outline of his legs. And I almost wonder if we could go a little bit thicker here. Maybe like 2.75, just so it like stands out a little bit more. I like that. Dylan said cute dog. Yeah, I have very cute dogs. They're awesome. They're the coolest dogs in the world. Dylan said, I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to invent small robotic dinosaurs to play with and to do things for me. Yeah, there's something really cool about those self-invented robots, you know. That's also a really good band, Jim, that you should check out. Self-invented robots. I am. I'm doing revised Robot Turtles.
Oh, he's adorable.
We're simplifying him because he was a little too complex at first.
Get a full back spread tattoo of it.
But I think that's what's fun about like the tin robot style robots is they're always something like, you know, it's almost like oh my gosh, what are they called? Why am I blanking out? I have toys of them. I have a stuffed animal of one right here. Why am I blanking out? Mai, help me out. Wait. Mai, what are these again? Daleks. Thank you. Daleks. There's something about the Dalek that I love because it's like it's so familiar, you know. They have something that looks like a toilet plunger and stuff like that. But I love when writers keep that silly design, like the Dalek is, you know, it's still like got its plunger in the new kind of reboot, but it's like super deadly, you know. I love that. But I think there's something really fun about that too when you're young, because it's like, you know, you could kind of envision like or imagine like making one, you know. Like it's not like some kind of I don't know, it's like not like that slick sci-fi stuff. I think that's what I liked about Star Wars too, you know, like when I was younger. Like Star Wars always appealed to me a little more than Star Trek, mainly because of that. Like the ships weren't
ship, it starts working again.
Yeah, like the ship's stalled and like they look like they're made out of real things, you know? And like whereas like, you know, the Enterprise just looked slick and cool and like it didn't look you know. Keep in mind I love Star Trek now, but it's like as a kid I think the thing that appealed to me about Star Wars was that kind of I don't know, like you could really imagine getting in the Millennium Falcon, you know? Like you could really I don't know, it's like it wasn't like a huge um step of the imagination to try to like put yourself in that ship, you know. Even the X-wings, you know, they felt familiar, like that it's like kind of close to your car, you know, or like something you've seen before, you know. It's not this unforeseen technology that's so far ahead. So I think that's what appeals to me about the about just corny robots. Dylan said, "I'm uncultured. I haven't seen a single episode of that series." Okay, Star Trek: The Next Generation is amazing, and like so, I grew up in a time. This is hard for people to know. Oh, Dylan was saying. So you're saying that Star Wars had more realistic tech because it broke down, since that happens in the real world. Exactly. I mean, it also just looked like it could break down. You know, like it looked like it could run and it looked like it could break, you know. But yeah, so it's funny. I grew up in a time where there was like a big divide for a while between Star Trek and Star Wars. And you know, so it used to be kind of portrayed, it was kind of similar to like they used to have this with punk and metal back in the day too, which is so stupid because they're really similar. If not, you know, influenced by the same exact stuff. But it's like when you're young and dumb, it's like I don't know. Back in the day, there wasn't a lot of crossover between Star Trek and Star Wars. Like you either liked Star Trek or you liked Star Wars, and there was like fighting words between between the two factions. And so up until I started dating my wife, because of that, I had just, you know, I liked the original Star Trek, you know, because I thought it was kind of corny and fun. But I was like, that was my exposure to Star Trek. And then she got me to watch Next Generation. And that's just so good. So good. um, And Gary was saying Star Trek: The Next Generation is really good, but mainly the middle seasons. I agree with you. It kind of like in the middle is when it gets going, and they start creating. They really start getting the flow of the characters, and the writing's just super solid, and the actors really. I don't know. I feel like at that point, that's actually a really good call, Gary, because I think the actors really gelled at that point, like where there was just a really, I don't know, like they all leveled up. And toward the end it does get a little tedious. You know, but they're great. I love that series, and I'm glad my wife got me to check it out, because again, you know, I don't know, Gary probably remembers this, but there was a time where like, you know, Star Trek and Star Wars were like feuding, you know, getting in knife fights in the alleyway.
I don't think people should be comparing the two. I think they're completely different. And I don't know why people constantly have to like one or the other.
I agree with Maya was just saying she doesn't see why people have to constantly like one over the other. I agree. They're just two different animals.
So different. There's no reason to.
And again, kind of like metal and punk rock, like the one, you know, like I love Star Wars, but like Star Wars pulled a lot of inspiration from Star Trek. You know, Roddenberry had a big impact on a lot of science fiction. So I can't like if I trash the one, it's kind of besmirching the other. Besmirching. I like the words I'm using today. That man besmirched me. Someone who's not working on a robot turtle, look up besmirched and tell me if that's an actual word. Am I using that correctly?
That's a word.
Corey said that drawing looks rad. What's it for? It's a cybersecurity illustration for a client. And I'll try to kind of mention it once it's up. I've done a couple book covers for them, but it's a fun client. We're simplifying though. The original version was like that, which is like way too wild. So what I'm doing is kind of cartooning it, simplifying it, so that it kind of better matches the aesthetic. So this is going to be interesting here because I want to have this have a black area here. And right now I'm just doing the lines and then we're going to expand them and color them. But I'm not doing live lines on this here illustration. Dylan said, I watched a whole long video about Star Trek costumes. I have not seen a full episode as well. It's worth checking out. The original's really fun. Like the original Star Trek is worth watching too. But if you want just like solid writing, I would recommend Next Generation. And like Gary said, like mid-season especially, it's so good. Some of the most solid writing.
The movies are really good too.
The Star Trek the original Star Trek movies are great. Don't watch the one with V'ger though. That is one of the worst, most boring movies ever made. I think that's the first Star Trek movie. That is, I mean, as much as I like Star Trek and stuff like that, that is hands down one of the worst movies ever made. Is V'ger? You guys are gonna have to remind me. All right, we have a little bit more going. And we're making some progress. And again, I'm really hoping to get this done by 10 because I have to exercise, take photo references, build a few curriculum for tomorrow. Curriculi. I'm feeling Corey's pain right now. Having a taste of his existence. of having to build a bunch of classes that you've never taught before. Whew. It's a beast. It's a beast, Corey, and I've just barely started. Do. That is going to be gone because we're simplifying again. I also want to thin this out to give a little bit more simplicity again. Let's go simple here. See? Yeah, I like that. Yeah, this can go a little thinner too. Just to like give a little variation in line weight here. Let's go a little thinner here. I like it. We're getting there, guys. Getting there shortly. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and save.
Hey, you
We've been going an hour. A taste of his existence. Great Morrissey song. Nice. I love Morrissey. You know what's funny? I when I was younger, I used to say I hated Morrissey, but I liked the Smiths. And I thought I was so smart as a kid. I was just like, Morrissey's awful, and I was so wrong because I used to think the Smiths were only good because of Johnny Marr. I was wrong. Morrissey's a freaking genius. Smiths are great. That was a obnoxious, like, trying to be I don't know what that would be called. Contrarian. I think I've been a contrarian for a good chunk of my life. And a lot of the time, being a contrarian, I'd end up with the right takes, some of my hot takes were dead on. But there's a couple things I've been wrong about when I was in contrarian Kemble mode. And one of them is the Smiths and Morrissey, because I like the Smiths, but I, used to trash Morrissey. Just because you kind of want to, like, you see the guy, you kind of want to trash him. But it's like, no, he's great. He's a genius. He's wonderful. And then the other thing I was wrong about was Pollock, the splatterform painter. I used to hate that guy so much. I used to think that was not art. It was awful. It was a charade put on the art world. I'd get all irate about it and be like, that's a guy who just couldn't make it and sold a bridge to a bunch of morons or something. That was my old take on it. And now it's like I actually really admire and appreciate Pollock and what he did for art. And I would make the argument it's better art than some really representational, beautiful stuff, because it got people talking, it got dialogue, and it definitely had passion and expression in it. So I like, again, little contrarian Kemble, young contrarian Kemble, was totally off on that take. Corey said that tortoise is rad. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
No, you're rad, Corey.
He also said, Mai said, no, you're rad, Corey. I love the idea of like a compliment fight where it's like, how dare you? You're rad. Like, let's see here. Corey said, it's difficult to get into Star Trek since it's always seemed like watching the West Wing in space. Lots of talking and walking and then Zoom call negotiations. Yes, it is like the West Wing in space. That's kind of like that's the part that's great about Star Trek. Star Trek is I think it explores new worlds and goes to places, boldly going where no one's ever been before. But no, it is like a more kind of exploration of politics and leadership and humanity in general. So but it has like really broad sweeping, very like profound things to say. And also it's really interesting because a lot of the tech in it is, even though it's like less believable, like I don't feel like it can get into the spaceships, it's way more realistic to what, space travel would potentially be like. And a lot of the terminology and the science is like closer to real. So it's just a different flavor. But it's way more philosophical than Star Wars. Like way more. Yeah. I mean, like May just pointed out, like the Force is pretty philosophical, but it's like Star Trek goes to levels that are really it's a heavier, slower, different vibe than Star Wars. And I think if you just kind of separate them, you can kind of appreciate them both for what they are. The original Star Trek, though, is just hokey, cheesy fun. Like the first Star Trek episode ever made is one of my favorite Star Trek episodes of all time. And that is just a guy ending up on a space planet full of vixens that want to breed with him in a zoo. And it's just straight pulpy 1950s corny, but at its best, like Next Generation is just like really again just hits some really profound notes and asks some really deep questions, and it's very moving and meaningful. I was very surprised by it. There's definitely a couple of those episodes that got me pretty choked up. But maybe I was right as a teenager and I'm just in my old age losing my taste. I don't know. All right. We're getting there, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gents, let's make this happen. Let's make it so. That's the other thing. Picard is one of the coolest characters ever. And Picard, I think the model of leadership that Picard shows is like what everybody wishes their boss was. He's like one of the best written leaders, I think, in anything. He's just, he's a lovable, great leader, and you want to follow him. and a lot of that's Patrick Stewart just being a genius. But it is really well written, and honestly has some really good lessons to learn about leaders and leadership. Especially if you're trying to lead a ship. I'm here all night. Thank you. I've noticed that the viewers just went from 500 to 0 after that joke. I'm just kidding. That would be funny, though, if everybody just dropped off like after that joke. They're like, leadership and leading a ship, I'm out of here. I'm done. This is way more than I signed up for casually setting up the stream to watch. I can take a bad joke, but really? Okay, here we go. Getting some rotation stuff here, some junk science, as they call it. We're getting close. Gary said, I agree, it's all about Picard. He was like the philosopher king. Yeah, he is a philosopher king. And that's the great thing is like the philosophy in it, man, there's some, I need to revisit it, but I think there's even episodes on determinism. So that's how we wrap this full circle. So now that I've been kind of getting into determinism and reading about that, do you guys have any philosophy tips? Any interesting, weird philosophical thoughts that that you've been exploring? Different concepts or thoughts or questions that are like, that could be a rabbit hole that I could have playing in the background while I set up a curriculum tonight? Okay, guys. Trailer is coming. This one is Frank's Adventures at the Library. I'll be back. We've been going for an hour. I'll be back to finish up this tortoise.
Our heroic adventurers fought orcs, monsters, sorcerers, necromancers, Now they find themselves in front of a mystical library. What shall they find? It's all in the roll of the dice.
We've come this far. There's great power behind this door. I can feel it. We just have to get past it. This door is no match for my axe. I shall chop it down.
You always want to use brute strength. Why don't you try knocking?
We'll try it your way.
You may enter. The library is open to all those who seek knowledge. Feel free to look through our tomes. Maybe you'll find the answers you seek.
I sense great power here.
And it's behind those shelves. Indeed, there are powerful items hidden behind these shelves. But you can only get there through the enchanted words. Do you have those words?
I believe I do.
Tremble before the Cremble.
There is great power.
Look at that glove. Must be so powerful. That is not where I sense this power. I must get closer. I found them. I found these sacred manuscripts written by Joshua Kemble. Behold, I now possess 2 stories and Jacob's apartment. Please tell us more about 2 stories and Jacob's apartment, and who is Joshua Kemble? Xeric Award-winning cartoonist Joshua Kemble is a freelance artist, graphic designer, and author. 2 Stories is a confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. Jacob's Apartment is a coming-of-age graphic novel in the vein of Ghost Road and Fun Home. It weaves together the threads of spiritual faith, identity, purpose, love, and loss to create an engrossing world in which waking and sleeping dreams collide.
You have made your choice. The passage is now closed.
Wait, can I get that glove?
No.
Oh. All right, let's go.
All right, so that was Frank Salazar's Adventures at the Library advertisements for my books. I appreciate him doing that. And when he turned that in to me originally, just with all the stop motion and voices and stuff, I was like, this is great. I just absolutely love it. So thank you, Frank, for sending that in. That was pretty awesome. Dylan said, I've been thinking about heroes and whether they're actually heroes if they kill the villain. Huh. Okay, so I have a whole weird thing on that. I used to be very like pro capital punishment and pro like the idea of like violence being justified. And I still think there are times where, you know, like, I don't know, let's say somebody's trying to like break into your house or something like that. Like, I think there are times where like violence is justified, especially if you're protecting people. But I am more and more, the older I get, kind of a believer in nonviolence in general. Now, I don't think you could make that a policy. Like, I don't think you could run a country with without violence, as sad as that is, because I think there's like psychopaths out there and bad people and stuff like that. But I feel like for my personal life, there's a lot of like Mennonites in the old history of my family. Not my living family that I remember, but it's like in our way back in the history of the U.S. On, I believe, my mom's side, there's a whole chunk of Mennonites that used to be Kembles. Like, they were some of the earliest. I guess they were her maiden name, which I'm not going to put out on the internet. But anyhow, so that was it was interesting for me to read about that, because as I've gotten older, I've so a lot of them were here, like on my mom's side, since the revolution, which is kind of wild, because on my dad's side, they're not, we don't have that as long of a history in the U.S. But it turns out that during the revolution, they actually just abstained from kind of taking a side, which at the time was kind of disappointing, because it was like, oh man, that's sad, Like, I wanted relatives who like fought for this country, and I do, I have, like, my grandpa was in World War II and stuff like that, but I thought it would be cool to have some relatives that actually like fought in the American Revolution. And as I've gotten older, I think that for me, I don't ever want to be in a situation in my life where I have to take someone's life. I'm going to do what I can in my life to avoid ever being in that scenario. I don't think it's right. Even in defense, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my own philosophy for myself. I don't think it's wrong for other people. I just actually tend to side with nonviolence in general. So to me, heroic, it depends on the hero. I guess it looks like Gary is kind of explaining it. Like, I think it depends on the hero and the villain. Emperor Palpatine doesn't need to go to space jail. He can die. But Superman shouldn't kill anyone, no matter how bad. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think if you have a Superman character, if you have a character that's so powerful, like Superman, then killing someone is just like the ultimate form of weakness. And so it kind of kills the character of somebody like Superman, where you're making a mythological character. It kind of brings them down to a level with the rest of us that's, I think, like that kind of like makes him less dignified and less of a interesting character, because like the Punisher, the Punisher is an anti-hero. It's like he's blowing everybody away. I wouldn't want to watch a Punisher movie where he's like, I choose the path of nonviolence. It's like, no, I'm watching the Punisher because he's like a crazy, gun-toting anti-hero. Wolverine's a bit of a wild card, right? So I could see Wolverine killing people, but it's like Batman, I think he gets into that territory of probably not. And again, it's like, I think it just has to do with like what it says about the character when they take that action. Lord of the Rings, like Gandalf kills a bunch of people. Like everybody's killing people in that because it's a war. So I don't know. I think you can write characters where it fits. And I don't think it kills the heroism in a story sense. But for myself, philosophically, I want to get to the point. I'm not saying I'm there, because I'm definitely human and, flawed. But I want to get to a point in my life where I would never take a life ever, under any circumstance, even in vengeance or, that's where I think I should be personally. And I will say I'm not there, because I'm a parent and stuff. So if anybody like messed with my kid or something like, there's things I can think of where I'd be like, I could see myself, being the hero who takes a life, and maybe not so heroic, but it's like, I want to, ideally, I think, to me, this might just be me getting old and soft or whatever, but it's like, I think life is really valuable, and I don't think anyone should be taking anyone's life. And that goes for, even in retribution. However, I would not think, I think that would be a really foolish way to run a government or protect a country or something. Cause like you definitely have to have systems of violence when there's people using violence. It's like one of those, conundrums where if you're the only one to stop doing it, it can be really disastrous because you can open yourself up to a lot of horrible things. But I feel like with Superman especially, it's like he's just so powerful. Like I think that when you have a character that's so powerful, or in the case of like Batman, like so rich, you kind of like don't want to see them exploit that and like exploit their power, because it's like generally Batman's fighting villains that are super powerful, but like they're mentally ill. So it's like seeing somebody like who's a little more mentally sound, just take out people who are like mentally ill just seems kind of wrong. And then like with Superman, again, it's like he's just so powerful. Like what makes him good, what kind of separates him from the other like alien beings or villains that he fights is like that code of ethics. And the second he breaks that code, it kind of breaks the whole beauty of a character like Superman, who I think at the end of the day, like when you're writing a Superman character, it's really boring unless you write him as the ideal. Like you don't want to me, I don't want to see a gritty Superman. Like there's enough gritty characters. I think he'd be the wrong one to do that with. But yeah. But it's funny because like it is interesting that when I was like in junior high though, oh my gosh, I wanted all my superheroes to like murder people. I was really into like Spawn and those comics where it'd just be like boom, bloody, like everything. But yeah, as I've gotten older, like the less I'm into that stuff. Pepsi Cola said, personally, I find peace is the only solution to stop the cycle of violence. However, this only works in a more idealistic version of the world, the one in my head. Well, that's why I'm like, I think I can make that call for myself, that I want to aspire to be a man of peace and not, seek violence. And I think that's part of like, weirdly enough, that's the art pursuit a little bit. And, I'm not saying, I know artists who've been in like the military and stuff like that. We interviewed back in Big Illustration Party Time days. We had Asaf and Tomer Hanuka on the show. Well, I think it was just Asaf, not Tomer. But Asaf and Tomer both like, fought in the military and like didn't even like fighting in the military, but they were military and, became cartoonists later. So it's not like just because you're an artist, you're going to be like a person of nonviolence, I mean, heck, Hemingway was just like blasting everything with a shotgun, including himself. It's like, so, but I do feel like part of the humanity's path is the idea that reason is important and that we can reason rather than have violence. Like nine times out of 10, I think sitting down and discussing is a good way to go. Personally, I don't know if it's the best policy, but that's my long-winded take on that. Pepsi said, I'm currently reading the Injustice comics where Superman has forced the world into peace. He's a little bit demented and militant about it. However, I kind of dig it. Interesting. He just like forces the world into peace. So is it like a that's interesting. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what, again, like the Superman tension should be that, like that he will be tempted to be, to hit that like baser kind of more human thing. But the thing that makes Superman interesting is he's not human. And so, he can be like that mythological figure that becomes what we all would aspire to be, I think that's the way you write Superman if you want to write it well. But again, I don't really write superhero comics, so I don't know, like, and I could also see where, like, if you're a writer and you're stuck writing Superman for like 40 years, and like, and you want to kind of change things up, I can kind of see why like in-house writers would be like, all right, we're killing off Superman, or we're gonna like have Superman like go dark, you know? Because it's like, I don't know, if you're writing the same character for like years, and you have all these fanboys that are like, you can't change anything. It's like, there would be a part of me that would want to just do something totally wild, you know. One of my favorite things that a mainstream superhero writer has done was, I think, when Rick Remender did. He like killed off the Punisher and made him like a zombie Punisher. That was really cool. And that was like completely wild, because it's like killing a main character, but it was interesting, and it added an interesting. I think he made him like Franken zombie or something. It was a cool idea. Franken Castle, that was it. So it was like a Frankenstein mixed with the Punisher, and it's like, again, if you're writing the Punisher and you're trying to do something new, or again, like writing Superman, I could understand that. But I also kind of feel like if you're going to do that, like, I don't know. I think there's some characters like the Punisher that you can do that with. And I think some that you just kind of have to leave like evergreen. Dylan said, I'm watching the Batman 2004 cartoon for the first time. I'd also say that the government should shut down Arkham because the convicts keep escaping. Yeah. And here's the thing that's weird with Batman. My favorite Batman is like, I loved the Nolan movies. I think those were just like perfect. But my favorite Batman is Adam West Batman. I like really again, I talked about liking robots that look like they're made out of like tin cans, I love the aesthetic and the vibe and the Batman of Adam West. More than I probably should. Cuz it's not like well written, But it's so good. It is so good. I don't know. I think I might even like Adam West's Batman more than Nolan's, because Adam West is awesome, and that there's something that's a lot of fun about a show that it's like they're almost just having fun with the fact that they know it's kind of stupid. And like but there's also like a sincerity to it. And I remember when I was a kid, I would watch those and like the reruns, and like I don't think it mattered that it was kind of silly. I still wanted to be Batman and fight villains, and it really did engage my imagination as a kid. And it didn't need to go like dark to do it, I don't know. So, but I also love Watchmen, and I love those explorations of like really dark versions of superheroes and stuff. I think it's a little overdone now. Because I feel like with The Boys, and then you have Invincible, and it's kind of like if somebody releases a comic now where they're like, it's like Superman but dark, or like, what if Superman was a jerk, or like, it's kind of like, yeah, we've kind of been there, we've explored that. And I'm sure it'll go in cycles where things will get all cookie cutter and Adam Westy again, and then you'll need that pushback of like the Burton Batman, that was like the first to kind of go, no, we're going like dark with this business, which, by the way, I loved that as a kid too. I really liked Tim Burton's Batman as well. I haven't watched it in years though. I don't know if it holds up. I like a lot of Tim Burton stuff, but I don't know if that holds up as well as Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is one of the best movies ever made. Dylan said, Adam West Batman. I watched it within the last 10 years and I cringed and but also laughed. It is the beauty of it is the thing. Like the cringe worthiness of it is half of what's fun about it. Gary said Jurassic Park and Arkham must have the same architects. There's a plot. You need to have like the company that built Jurassic Park. What is that company? It's like there's a company name for it. Something Tech or something. Can't remember what it was called. Engine or something? Engine? I can't remember what it was called. Okay. So we're almost done with this robot turtle. And I think it's much more simplified. There's a couple things I want to do. I want to get rid of these lines because they're just too many. And again, keep it simple. And I think I'm going to do like maybe this too. Keep it simple. And this one, we're going to, again, just keep it simple. And this one, it's just too many lines. All right. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. It is 10 o'clock, though. Dylan said it was called We Build Sucky Architecture LLC. Gary said, you want these doors lockable? Yeah, I feel like there's a plot there somewhere. You know, the architects of really bad buildings. There's a side story that I don't know has been written, you know? It's like let's do a side story about the lawsuits that were filed against the people who built Jurassic Park. Like the aftermath. Like it's like Law and Order, but it's just, you know, the aftermath of a Jurassic Park-esque scenario, you know? Because you got to think about like the amount of legal just everything after an event like that would be unconscionable. Like, can you imagine if like Disneyland had like a dinosaur in it or something, and then it ate a bunch of the like? There'd just be no end to like the amount of litigation, congressional hearings, all of it. You know, that's a story right there. I know people have done stuff like that, though, like the cleanup crews and stuff like that for superheroes. But I still feel like that could be pushed a little bit. The true villains of hero comics are architects and insurance companies. The evil duo you never saw coming. Oh, that's good. Gary said maybe I'm getting old, but I'm beginning to feel superhero stuff just works better animated. Some of them are too weird live action, for example, the X-Men. I feel like the X-Men almost got there. Like I do remember, which was it? It was like the second one. I think the second one was it Bryan Singer, I think. I actually really liked that, the second one. But I feel like yeah, X-Men's a tough one to nail, you know? Although I've never seen Logan, the Wolverine movie. I never saw that. And a lot of people swore up and down that that was a great movie. Okay. Again, turtle business. Getting its turtle on. Keeping it simple. simplifying from the original because I went a little too buck wild with the details. Gary said, I want to see all the X-Men in their comic costumes, but live action, they look like a bunch of lunatic luchadors or something. It doesn't work. I agree. Lunatic luchadors would be a great comic. Just a bunch of insane luchadors. And the catch with that comic is they wouldn't even be fighting crime or anything. They'd just be running around like lunatics. But they're luchadors. You know? But it could be like slice of life narratives, you know, like the lunatic luchadors do their laundry at a laundromat. Or they have to get their dry cleaning done, and the dry cleaner is horrified by the luchador costume. How am I going to do this? This is crazy. How am I going to clean this? Okay. See, people out there who are like, I want to work on comics, but I can't think of anything, or I need inspiration. Just watch this stream. There was like 10 ideas. I've got an idea for a great comic book. How often have you guys heard that from relatives? I don't hear it as often as when I was really big in t-shirt design. I used to get that all the time. Like everyone I knew would be like, dude, have I got the greatest t-shirt idea? And they would tell you something that was not a great idea. And you'd have to be like, I'll add that to the list of ideas. Thank you. However, that being said, every once in a while there would be a guy like this guy Nestor who gave me the idea, or sorry, Nathan, who gave me the idea for Captain Obvious, and it was such a good idea because nobody at the time had a Captain Obvious shirt that I was like, when this prints, you get 50% because that was such a good idea. And that's all he did was go Captain Obvious t-shirt, and I was like, yes, that's great. But most of the time it was like just, you know, people are like, oh, I always wanted to do a story about a princess who gets captured. And you're like, I don't need to hear your thing. You make that. I don't want to. Would building codes change? Everything has to be built superhero proof. And then Dylan said, do you think that if superheroes and supervillains existed, it would eventually lead us to not being a capitalistic society and have shorter buildings? I think if superheroes existed, there's one thing the boys got right, which is they kind of created this world where superheroes are almost like it's almost similar to like atomic bombs. Like they're this giant weapon. And I think that's pretty much what it would be. I think it would be treated similar to like, that, where it would be like such or Watchmen actually handles it pretty well too, where it's like, I think those are pretty realistic interpretations of what like a world with superheroes might look like. We're having fun conversations. So here's what I'm going to do when I finish this. I'm going to go straight to photo references and then exercise. And the other stuff. Dylan said, I don't know the references. Worth checking out. I think that Watchmen is like one of those things where you'd say it's overrated, but it's just a perfect comic. So I would definitely make sure you check out Watchmen. The Boys is okay. But Watchmen is amazing. I reread that last year and was like, maybe it's not as good as I remember it, and was stunned and not so stunned to be like, oh yeah, there's a reason this is like a classic. It's also just for like the craft of comics. It's a really good example of like kind of a perfect comic. And this is coming from somebody who, like, I don't think everything Alan Moore does is genius. But man, that comic. Gary said, all right. Good night, everybody. Have a good one. Have a good one, Gary. As Pepsi said, you are a rock star. Okay, we're almost done with this turtle. I'm going to play another trailer, then we're going to finish up this turtle. And as usual, it's taking about an hour longer than what I estimated, which is the story of my life. All right, here is the trailer for Jacob's Apartment. Speak clearly, it seems that only in dreams can we be these things we've seen and walk around breathing pain. I don't know the part to play in this heart of mine. There's dissonant things, they stood at the seams. All right, we are finishing up the turtle shell here. Then we're going to do those robot arms and kind of simplify them, make them a little more cartoony. I think we'll do some circuitry on this, but not quite as much as the original had, just to kind of, again, just do a pass that's a little more simple for the client. And, you know, if you guys saw their books, like, you'd understand. It's like their style is a much simpler style. And so for this to kind of fit with the rest of them, it needs to be much simpler. Which is actually kind of cool, but I wish I had thought of that before to save myself some work. Okay. So here we go. We've got this going. Got an active chat going. We have We have Pepsi saying better than 2 hours over, I guess. Yeah, that's true. That's true. 1 hour off on my estimate is a heck of a lot better than 2. You know what? Let's keep this really simple. Even that circuit doesn't need all the detail. Now what we're going to do is just a little bit of indications of details. I like the idea of these having some kind of circuitry stuff, but maybe we simplify it a tiny bit. Is that too much? Is that too much detail? No. But I want to keep it with a lot of space. A lot of space. The final frontier. I kind of don't mind having a circuit or two. Just little indications of that. But again, it just doesn't have to have as much of that. So, and I want to leave gaps. That's much better. Let's do one of those here. I like the idea of, again, just kind of simplifying. Because I can. Let's do some fake circuitry here. Yeah, that's actually reading fine. So it's really only going to take like a few more of those little details, but just simplifying quite a lot. Keeping that a really big gap between the final edge here. And I like the idea of like a circuit box. So we'll just grab this and do another one, but we'll just do it like an indication rather than all the detail on the inside. Yeah, that's working a lot better. Yep. Same message, much simpler. Add another there. Is that too much? No, that kind of works. Pepsi said, your artwork looks sick, Joshua, in a healthy, cool way. Thank you. And he said, I am the whooper. I fist bump, shimmy, and whoop. Like my 3 attacks if I were a Pokemon. Fist bump, shimmy, and whoop. I like that. I used to know nothing about Pokemon. And then I had a child. And he knows so much about Pokemon that I have learned a bunch. Because we got like a book that's like the Pokedex and defines all the different Pokemons and their powers and stuff. It's a really... and the one thing I've learned is that the most powerful Pokemon is Magikarp. Magikarp is hands down undefeatable. Is my favorite Pokemon. He's got 3 moves. They're Splash, Splash, and Splash. And that's Magikarp. That's what's magic about Magikarp. There's a lot of people who hate on Magikarp, don't know the full power. But they will learn. They'll be out for a stroll one day, just having a good old time, and then splash, Magikarp. Done. Shouldn't have underestimated Magikarp. Dylan said, I don't play Pokemon, but I love Magikarp. Nice. Well played, Dylan. I love Magikarp too. It's hard not to root for him. We're almost there. All we have to do is finish the rest of these, and then we're gonna do the robot hands, and then we're gonna be done. I thought we'd be done by 10, but we're gonna be done by 11. How's that for awful estimate? That tends to be my life on these streams, where I'll be like, I'm just going to color this page. It should take about an hour. And it's like 6 hours later. But I think you kind of have to be a little crazy to be a cartoonist. I think you have to be able to look at something like a giant graphic novel that's going to take years and be like, I could do that in a week. And then a year in, I could do this in a year. 2 years in, you're like, I could do this in 3 years. I don't know. I think you kind of need a little bit of that craziness. Unless you're somebody like Richard Fairgray, who we've had on the Artcasters, who like knocks out a graphic novel a week. And in those cases, you literally aren't estimating wrong. You're just, some kind of proficient genius. But I think the delusion has to be there. Almost for almost any art activity. Dylan said, oddly enough, I love TikTok's videos and posts about mixing different Pokemon or creating your own Pokemon. I don't find that odd. My son's really into that stuff. And I think my son is the raddest, so if he's into it, I don't see why others wouldn't be. All right. We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. You know what? I want to do a little more cartooning with this this background line. Like, I liked the thickness, but I want it to be a little more freeform, like it's dirt. And then we're going to do, we'll just connect it so that it's easier to fill later on. And then I think we'll just add a few little detail lines without getting too detailed. just to give him like a seat in the location to kind of sit in. And we'll adjust these in a second too. Okay, let's see if we can make those a little less boring. And we got a good 30 minutes till we hit 11, which is good. And it's not as ideal as it would have been at 10, but it's close. And right now I'm just going to pick all the ones that I don't want to alter the direction. The line, the taper. And now what I'm going to do is alternate. There we go. Pepsi said, at least you can be assured you had no chance of the goal due to determinism. That's true. Nice. Pepsi said, I don't use social media, but love people being creative like that. Rad dad, rad mom, rad son, rad sister-in-law. Nice. Rad dogs. Rad evil goldfish. Nice. At least you can be a true... let's see. Dylan said, I found a local printer in Arizona and I wish they offered free samples of their paper. Most printers, if you reach out to them, will give you free samples of their paper. I'd be surprised of a printer that wouldn't. Sometimes you just have to ask. Because when I was an art director, I used to get free samples of paper all the time. And every once in a while, there was a printer who didn't advertise it, but if you asked, they would provide it. So sometimes it can be just asking, you know. Also, sometimes you can find out the paper that they use, and then you can talk to the paper companies. Like if they're really on a budget. Because quite often, you know, printers aren't manufacturing the paper at their place. So they're ordering from different paper mills. So you can find some really cool paper samples that way. So again, I'm going to do like kind of the ultra thick outline, and then we're just going to simplify quite a bit on the interior lines. And I'm going to leave some of them as not closed lines because I think that's part of what was throwing off the client. Nice. Dylan said, "Ooh, I'll try that. They seem to be cool, and I would like to support them. Small businesses in Arizona. Yeah, you should. Again, a lot of local printers too. They won't advertise, but for somebody who especially is going to print with them or is seriously interested, a lot of the time they will have little samples, um, paper samples. So sometimes it's just a phone call of like they might ask you specifically what you're interested in printing, especially smaller printers. They might be like, "What do you want to look into?" Like, and you can say like what stocks of paper you kind of want samples of. Because the thing about like a lot of really small custom printers is quite often they can do everything. Like, depending if they have like an actual press and they can do offset, like it's pretty limitless with like what paper they can use. And so in those cases, it's like kind of a weird question to ask for paper samples. But you can also just say like your most common, or I think if you have a rough idea of what you're looking for, um, that might help too. My previous job, as an art director, like we would print a lot of catalogs and stuff. So a lot of those would be, samples for like paper that, we could use for interiors of catalogs and catalog covers and stuff like that, or business cards, that kind of stuff. So I'm doing the general outlines right now. And then from there, we're going to get to a more kind of cleaned up version of the robot. This is like robot arms. Yeah, we're definitely going to be done around 11. So it will be a late one. But that is okay. Part of the gig, I don't like how that endpoint is not meeting very well. Okay. We're getting there. Now we're going to do some interior details, a little thinner. And we're going to kind of pay attention to a little bit of what I was doing there. Let's do... I think these can be sort of solid. We're getting there. And now we're going to do just some more like interior lines that aren't quite as connected. So in this case, this will just be like 2-point lines separating the digits. But I think the digits will sort of not resolve because I want to leave some kind of open lines to keep it more gestural and kind of cartoony looking than the original, where we had all these closed lines. He said the business is called Ready Comics. They have 6 book sizes. Minimum pages is 4. They also have a ton of different products. Yeah, in that case, you can probably just call. I would just call them and say, hey, can I get like some samples just to see? What's everybody working on tonight? Out of curiosity, if you're watching this, what are you guys working on whilst listening? Okay, so Pepsi Cola said, learning how to draw a robot turtle in case of emergencies. Nice. You never know when you're going to need a robot turtle. And a lot of this right now that I'm working on, I'm going to taper these lines eventually, just to kind of have, again, like a little bit more of a hand-drawn kind of vibe. But right now we're just kind of putting in interior details. And this isn't how you build everything in vector. Like there's ways to do this with like closed shapes and stuff like that. But what I'm going to eventually do is expand the lines. And then we're going to, from there, color fill, which should take like no time at all. Honestly, it might be a little longer than 11 though to get it done. Okay, so let's see what we got there. Taper those lines. Taper those lines. Flop them. And again, we're just going to kind of taper these lines. This one should be more like this, with a taper here. Pepsi Cola said, "What made you decide to start streaming originally?" Well, it was that I'm working on art anyway, and so, and when I was in grad school, I really enjoyed getting in conversations with people while working, and it kind of felt like working in the bullpen or something, like I had imagined when I was a kid Marvel Comics would feel, where you're just hanging out with different artists or friends and like working on stuff. And cartooning and illustration is a pretty lonely endeavor where you're spending a lot of time alone. So I started realizing like it'd be fun to stream. Like it'd be fun to do live streams while I work so I can hang out with people while I work. And I also thought it might be helpful or interesting for other people, So yeah, so I've been live streaming since, and I also thought it would be a good way to like promote, my books and stuff like that. So it serves like a multi-purpose, Yeah, so it has like multiple functions. Dylan said having a sense of community and togetherness. Yeah, very much. And it's been cool. I've made a lot of friends through that. Some really close, like real life friends, where it's gone beyond streaming to just like actual friends and people I hang out with. So it's like, it's been a cool experience. I think we're going to get rid of this detail because again, we're keeping it simple. Okay. One hand down. One robot hand down. The next we'll do, let's see. The next does have this black line. I want to make this a little thinner. Let's do like 1.75. And then we'll just continue to do that throughout until we get to the end. Whew. All right, I'm going to play another trailer, and then we will finish the other hand. And we'll finish up this turtle illustration. We're almost there. All right, let's put a trailer for... Philip Chandler's trailer.
Hi, my name is Phil Chandler. I'm a freelance artist, illustrator, and cartoonist. Today, though, however, I want to tell you about a graphic novel I picked up recently called Jacob's Apartment. This book was both written and beautifully illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It is the story of a doomed romance that causes the main character to question his beliefs and his faith, while he's also going through other tragedies in his life. Every page has been illustrated by hand and digitally colored with painstaking detail. It is an emotional story that causes you to think and even question things in your own life. And while the story is a tragedy, it is one that I was completely entertained by and I highly recommend. You can currently find this on Amazon or even check in with your local bookstore and see if you can order it. And while you're at it, you can also check out my Instagram at Phil Chandler Arts and also my YouTube channel by the same name, Phil Chandler Arts. And go buy Jacob's Apartment.
All right. Nice. Pepsi Cola said, neat, making your own writer's room. Yeah, that was kind of the idea, was like kind of a creating like a different vibe with that. I'm going to try to get light that's a little more warm here. Let's see here. Seems that regardless, it's like blowing out the light. Let's see. That's interesting. There we go. That's a little better. Hopefully that's a little better for visibility, or maybe blowing it out. I don't know. For some reason, the light on this image seems pretty blown out tonight. Okay, so we're going to do the rest of this thing here by doing these guys, these separating lines. Do them at 2. And now we're going to do just some simplified details here again, kind of like the last, where it's going to be real simple. Kind of indications with less detail. Luckily, I had the drawing with the structure already kind of worked out for the client. So it's just about simplifying, you know? Excuse me. A little bit of a cough there. Some interesting things happening in the chats. Pepsi said, I left California 3 years ago after San Diego hit 120 degrees. Just like, no, stop signs are melting. No. Yeah, it gets wildly hot where I'm at. I love California, but the deserts of California, man, we aren't super far from Arizona. We're a little bit better than Arizona. The only times I feel good are when I talk to my friends who live in Arizona, and then I'm like, yeah, I guess it's not that hot. But you know it's pretty hot if like the only comparison is like, yeah, but it's not quite as hot as Arizona. You know, like that's pretty hot. All right, we're getting there, guys. Pepsi said, "Poor Arizona." Well, I don't know, but like the thing is, the cost of living in Arizona is a lot less. So, I mean, I guess maybe not as much as it used to be. I think costs are going up a little bit, but yeah, cost of living in California can be up there quite a bit. This is going to be just an indicator line. Do the double indicator. Okay. Let's do our tapers. Pick every line on the top. I think that does it. Let's see how our tapers go. Kind of move these. Every line on the bottom. Let's do our taper again. Move them. These need to flop. Flop it. Cool. And then we're just going to do our line kind of similar to this. Going to do our similar lines here. And I think that'll do it. So what I want to do now is just to make the color filling simpler, is have like a little boundary line here just for that background area. And I'm going to have it go outside because, again, it doesn't need to be perfection. We're going to end up clipping a lot of that edge. We're going to save. I'm going to keep a raw level that's this. I'm going to make a copy of it. And then we're going to do our select all, object expand. Expand all of it. Boom. And then make it flat shapes. So now I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to put it under. I'm going to call this line. I already have my swatches, I think. Let me see. Window swatches. Perfect. Okay. Line is going to be that exact CMYK value. That's like the value they use. We're going to make a copy of it, put it underneath. Select all that, turn it off, save, and then I'm gonna paint bucket this punk. So funny, the paint bucket tool, right? Who knew? Okay, we're gonna paint bucket. Okay, let's start by paint bucketing. We have some colors to work with, so I'm just gonna kind of start randomly paint bucketing and we'll see where we go from there. I want to look at the color that I had kind of established on the original. Okay, I do like the darker tone for the ground, so we're going to do that. Let's do I think the sky can just stay white, maybe. But I like the idea of maybe this is a darker tone too. These are a darker tone. Let's do maybe this is that mid-tone. Turtle, I really want to simplify that as well. I'm going to look at my little color map. And I think for the turtle, we're going to do, the turtle is going to have a colored shell. But first we'll do, let's make the robot like less standout-ish in the foreground. No, I like the robot white. Let's do white for the robot. That's good. Let's get rid of his little thing there. Okay, I think we'll do the turtle shell and his eyeball as this like lighter color. And maybe his little toes. We'll adjust that in a little bit. I'm going to do the darker tone here. I like the idea of the darker tone kind of underneath here. And we're going to do that lighter tone for the whole of his shell. Just kind of keeping it more simple than than before. Oh. I want to get those little dots too. I don't want those white. I think we can go black here, just in this spot. And then we'll do that to kind of create some depth. Do just the ridges here are like that darker, just to kind of create a little bit of depth, but not too much. And then I like the idea of maybe that's that black as well. And then let's do this as the welding gun. Do we want the welding gun to be darker so it like stands out a little bit? Because we want contrast, right? And then I like the idea of hitting that spot that I missed. Where is it? Now that I'm seeing this all kind of put together, I think we need to do this lighter because it's too much contrast. And I think we'll do object expand. And then I'm going to select everything that's this color, same fill color. We're going to find our Pathfinder. Boom. Merge them all. Select everything that's this color, same fill color. Merge them all. This we're going to adjust. So that it, works. And then I think we're going to do just a mild bit of shading on top of this. So that we can hopefully have some cool effects here. Just some like mild, light and shadow kind of effects. Nothing like wildly crazy, but we're just adding just like a little bit of shadow, using these like minimal colors. Yeah, like that's giving it a little bit more dimension, but not like wild dimension to it. And this is all just like a little bit of bluster at the end to kind of give it, some real 3D kind of vibes, but keeping that simple thing. People would be more susceptible to a cute AI bot than like a walking kind of robo version. That's true. Very true. There was that Black Mirror episode or whatever where they had like those robo dogs, and that was like pretty realistic to like what I think like real AI, machine kind of monsters would look like. They could be kind of cute and then deadly, I don't think they'd quite look, like what we might assume they would look like. So okay, now we've got some dimension. Now I want to add more. I might be going too wild with it, but I think it works. And we're going to do like one more layer of kind of color to just kind of, again, like solidify this. I think we'll do like one round of the mid-tone yellow. But this should give like more kind of volume. More volume to our little robot dude. And it is already 11, so we're way over time on this. That's okay. It's worth it. The client will be happy. Cool. Just one more little detail here in this color. Okay. So I think we're getting there. Don't want to put too much detail. But I do think maybe we do just a little bit of light on here. A little bit of light on here. Just kind of help it read. About a shadow here. And we're just kind of shading the hand here just to like add a little dimension. Sort of indicating like a light source slightly coming from above. It's tough with a limited palette, you know, but it's kind of fun as a challenge. See what you can do. Frank said, I was listening to Pod Meets World, but I had some notifications to check. I had my pens out with my card and about to ink. Nice. It's awesome, Frank. I feel like Frank is just a good dude. If you don't mind me saying, Frank, you seem like just a good dude. Okay, let's see here. And this is going to be kind of reversing, similar to the other. Okay, I think we're getting closer. There's a couple things I want to do that I think will help here. Just adding some real subtle indications of shading. Doing that like darker tone now. That's a little too much. That was a little too much too. I think instead we'll just do a real mild one. And then we'll have just some real slight stuff here. And there's one other thing I want to do to kind of cap this all off that we might do by going here, selecting this spot, not that spot, this spot. That's like that whole chunk. Copy that shape, put it here. It was close. We were close. We were so close. And then I need to copy this shape, and this shape. No, not this shape. Something like that. I think that's going to do it. So the one thing I think I should also add is just a little bit of indications of light on the ground, and then we'll be good to go. I think that's going to do it. Now I just need to go to my old art, copy my mask, because why recreate the wheel? Go ahead and take this, group it, take this, group it, take this, group it. We're going to take them all, group them. And we're going to make another copy to put underneath everything. Oh, I think I moved stuff there by accident. And this will be white. And then we'll send it to the back. And we have finished our robot illustration for the client. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. This was what I thought would be. I thought it would be a 2-hour stream. It ended up being a 3-hour stream. So I really appreciate you guys. If you haven't yet, hit that like button. Hit that bell so you get notifications when I'm about to go live. And feel free to leave a comment in the comments section. Thanks to everybody who was hanging out in the chats. It was a lively one and always fun. And I appreciate you guys. One more time, let me show the turtle real quick that we finished. Chagoom. Look at that beautiful, beautiful robot turtle. All right. I will see you guys on the next live stream. And I will try to live stream as I'm doing art whenever I can, even when I'm freelancing sometimes. So I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.